evening and hope you enjoy our community forum. I hope
Republican Central Committee, and for many, many months, if not years, we have been meeting across the corridor, and as we leave we always give our congenial hellos and highs, although we have a different thought process. So we decided a couple months back that we get together and have this joint venture, and we're glad so many of you showed up and actually came tonight. We have an agenda out there, and then for those that are in the Republican Central Committee or Republicans can stay after this event. We're going to have our short meeting because this is our normal meeting tonight. So, as Sharon welcomed you, I was asked not to give the invocation, but since today is our National Day of Prayer, I would like everyone to take a minute and bow their head and say your prayer the way you think, whether you believe or not. Thank you. Thank you. Sarb, would you lead the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Our first set of candidates this evening are for sheriff. We have Dennis Hauck, Brandon Barnes, and Jeff Pierce. Our two moderators are Bob Kent and Nathan Black. And Bob, do you want to say a word about who you are and so forth?
Okay. Yes, I'm Congressman Garamindi's ex officio rep to the state party, and got a lot of friends out there. Hi. Thank you.
Thank you. Nathan?
Yeah, and I'm Nathan Black, or Nate Black, Sutter County Auditor Controller. Pleasure and honor to be here. Looking forward to working with you three.
Okay. Would you like to explain the format?
Yeah, sure. So we're going to begin with a 3-minute introduction for each of you. And after the 3-minute introduction, I think we're going to just jump into the questions, and we'll go back and forth. And each question will be asked kind of for all three of you to answer, and that'll be a 2-minute response for those questions. And we're going to go through all of those, and I don't think the district attorney, the other candidate, is here, or is Chris Carlos here?
They will be later.
Oh, later? Okay. So, yeah, we'll have either some questions or a 5-minute introduction from him at that time.
Okay, and we will have a 2-minute closing for each of you candidates also. Okay. Are there any questions? I don't think so. Anyone in the audience have any questions?
I'm trying to keep our lights.
Oh. Pat and Liz are doing timekeeping. And 30 seconds, 15, and that's all, folks.
Sayonara.
All right. If no other questions? No other questions, we will begin. Bob and Nate?
Well, I guess I'll turn it over to, maybe we'll start with Dennis and work our way across for the introduction. So 3 minutes each.
Is this thing on? Yeah. Okay. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming out this evening, and thank you to both parties for hosting this evening. In my campaign, I've told you why I feel that I should be your sheriff. I haven't spent time telling the voters in Sutter County why my opponents up here should not be the sheriff. I've told supporters, including my family members, not to spread mud. None of us up here are perfect. I'm sorry that the public has been subjected to all of the mudslinging in this race. Just today, I received this package that someone felt necessary to send out to each person that's endorsed me for sheriff. Each of us up here took an oath of office, an oath at the elections office when we decided to run. I would ask each of my opponents to encourage their supporters to concentrate on the reasons they are running, not why someone else shouldn't be elected. Jesus said, "Let thee among you without sin cast the first stone." I don't know anyone that should be casting stones. Again, I would like to thank you for coming here tonight, and I hope to earn the trust represented by your vote on June 5th. It would be an honor to serve you, your families, and the community as your sheriff. Thank you.
Good evening, and again, I also want to thank everybody for the opportunity to speak tonight, and thank you to both committees for having us here. I'm Brandon Barnes, candidate for Sutter County Sheriff. I currently am employed across the river at Yuba County. I've been there for more than 22 years now. During that time, I started in corrections, and after a very short period of time, I was able to go to patrol where I became a patrol deputy. Within 4 years of that assignment, because of my hard work and my dedication, I was promoted to the rank of sergeant, which coincidentally is a first-line supervisor. During that time as a sergeant, I had the opportunity to be a community policing supervisor, as well as become a detective. It was during my time in detectives that I worked cases that took me as far away as Alabama chasing a murder suspect. I showed the aptitude and the dedication and the work ethic that I was promoted to the rank of lieutenant. And because of my work that I did, I was actually allowed to stay in that assignment and continue to supervise the investigations unit. I did that on 2 separate occasions, and I'm very proud of that time. When I had the opportunity to promote to captain, I had a conversation with my boss, who's Sheriff Steve Durfer, and he asked me, what assignment he thought I would like to do, and I told him I wanted to be the captain of our jail, corrections. The reason I did that is because I knew I had aspirations of being sheriff. The jail is the one thing that you are statutorily required to do as sheriff, is run a jail. There is so much litigation right now being placed upon our correctional facilities because of realignment and these longer sentences that are being handed out at the county level. We do not have the ability to take care of the mental health and the medical issues that are being placed upon us. And as a result, people are going up and down the state suing our correction facilities. And so it's important to understand what goes on in a jail and to have the training and the experience behind you to be in charge of a jail if you're the sheriff. Education-wise, I have my bachelor's degree in police management. I'm a graduate of the FBI National Academy. I spent 10 weeks in Quantico, Virginia. I'm also a graduate of the California's Post Command College, which is an 18-month leadership program that deals with management. It actually teaches you how to run a department. I think that's an important aspect in terms of developing strategic plans and having a vision and having the ability to carry out your vision. I think those are very important. So with that in mind, I presented my Barnes Plan of Action as part of my campaign. There's copies available for you guys outside, just outside the doors there on the table. A key component of that is developing a community response team. We're going to develop a team that's made up of both sworn and non-sworn personnel. We're going to ask for other departments to get involved and be part of this team. This team will have the flexibility to go out and act and proactively take care of issues in our community, whether it's ag theft, or maybe it's a problem at the school, or maybe it's a homeless situation. We will have the flexibility to do that. There are other things that are outlined in my action plan, and I hope that I have an opportunity to share those with you here tonight. So I want to thank everybody, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here and speak before you. Thank you.
Well, I want to thank both central committees for putting this on, and thank for everybody coming in to listen to us. My name is Jeff Pierce, and I'm running for Sutter County Sheriff. A little bit about myself. I've been in law enforcement for 40 years, and I'm going on my 37th year with the Sutter County Sheriff's Office. I've worked my way through the ranks. I'm currently, for the last 8 years, I've been your undersheriff under Paul Parker. I've worked pretty much every place in a possible you could work in a sheriff's office. I've worked at jail, courts, patrol, detectives, narcotics. I've been on many special teams, including firearms, K-9 officer, field training officer, SWAT team leader, pilot, SWAT team commander. I graduated from high school and went on to Yuba College and got my associate arts degree in administrative justice and a bachelor of science degree through Sacramento State in criminal justice. I am a graduate, as well as Brandon is, of the National FBI Academy. I have multiple police officer standard certificates and a management certificate. I've been honored twice as Officer of the Year for the Sutter County Sheriff's Office. I'm the only one up here who's invested all this time in my career to Sutter County Sheriff's Office. I have a lot of accomplishments, from upgrading technologies that include computers in vehicles, camera systems, radio system upgrading so we can communicate with other agencies on different frequencies. I've been involved in multiple 911 system upgrades, currently working on a upgrade to 911 techs. I've developed a lot of programs. I've done strategic planning, I've done mission statements, I've been involved in putting together a community policing program, and been involved in putting together various programs such as the Officer in Charge program, which teaches people who want to become supervisors on how to become supervisors. We have also put together a career development plan that will lead people in the direction they want to go with their career. We've also been practicing a session plan. We've been trying to we work with our cadets and we get them ready to become reserves and deputies and move the way up the ranks. Probably the majority of our department is past reserves and cadets. I belong to many organizations. I'm a member of the Farm Bureau. I'm a member of the Narcotics Association. I've been a member of the Coroners Association. I'm a member of the FBI National Associates. I have 3 adult sons and 5 grandchildren. And as your sheriff, obviously, I want to continue the hard work we've been doing. I want to strengthen our ability to get deputies out in the rural area, to increase our presence out there. I want to stand up against any more expansion of marijuana, and I want to be a defender of your Second Amendment rights, and I want to build the relationships even better with the Citizens Academy. Thank you.
Thank you for that. So I'm going to be asking this first question, and then we'll transition to Bob for the second question. What we're going to do is Dennis began the intro, so I'm just going to skip to Brandon to begin the first answer to the first question, and then Jeff, and then we'll do Dennis last for this first question. Okay, so the question is nice and broad. What are the biggest concerns for law enforcement for this area? 2 minutes.
Yeah, that is nice and broad, Nate. Well, for law enforcement in general, I think if you look internally at the Sheriff's Department, there's some pretty significant issues that need to be overcome. The first is getting prevailing wages for our officers so that we can compete with some of the surrounding agencies and we can stabilize our workforce. There's obviously some additional training issues that need to be taken on within the Sheriff's Department. There's technology issues. There's an evidence system that is old and antiquated, does not use a barcode system to track evidence. And so those are some of the issues that we would be looking at internally. On a much broader scope, if you get outside of the department, obviously we've got many challenges in our community. One of the questions that was posed last night was in relation to officer-involved shootings and some of the issues surrounding those. We need to continue to train our officers to be professional, be safe, be tactical, and go home at the end of their shift to their families. An officer's job is to protect and uphold the values of our community. Their job is not to go out and get killed, and we need to make sure that that's not happening in our community. Thank you.
Okay.
That's a broad question, you're right. And there's a lot of issues throughout the county, including funding. And we also have problems with our funding because our general fund is always shrinking because we have mandated retirement systems, more social programs pushing on our systems. But we need more deputies. We're trying to find ways. We have to find innovative ways of doing it. I've been involved in all the technologies, trying to get up and give whatever tools we can to our deputies. I can tell you we have the best equipment around in this region. I want to deal with the homeless problem. We're dealing with it right now. I sit on an executive committee every week, and we work hard to try to find ways that we can resolve that situation. The Board of Supervisors has put together a committee to find locations for the transitional housing for our homeless people, and I want to continue working hard on that. Hardening up our schools, making sure our schools are safe. Our schools are it's a great resource to have, but I mean, we have our children who are precious to us going to those schools, and we need to harden them up. We need to let the board decide on how they want to defend their schools. I support 2067 Assembly bill that Gallagher is pushing. The only thing I'm concerned about is the funding mechanism where they want to charge the people who buy ammunition and weapons a surcharge. And I don't think that's fair to lawful gun owners to have to pick up all that money and have to pay for the whole load. It should be distributed throughout the state of California. I want to stand up, and I think when you stand up, the marijuana is legal, and it's here. So I don't want to see it expanded. I don't want to see dispensaries. I'll stand up and fight that. Obviously, I will enforce recreational marijuana. Thank you.
So I think one of the broadest issues that's going to be facing Sutter County Sheriff's Office is going to be recruitment and retention. And that not only applies to Sutter County Sheriff's Office, but law enforcement in general. When you turn the television on today, you see that officers on the street are being criticized for their actions, second-guessed, and Monday morning quarterbacked on everything. And in some instances, the officers are in the wrong, and those officers need to be held accountable. But a lot of time, people aren't seeing the entire picture. So recruitment has become a problem in law enforcement. Law enforcement salaries aren't up to par. Sutter County is definitely behind the curve when it comes to local law enforcement salaries. And we need to work with the Board of Supervisors to determine or try to make funding allocated for those purposes, for law enforcement, so that the people that we have at the Sheriff's Office, the good men and women that are there, that we retain them, that we keep them. We don't want to train them and lose them to Yuba City or Woodland or West Sacramento. We want to keep our deputies. We also need to put more deputies on the street. And grant funding may be a means to do that, although grant funding is a temporary fix in some aspects. But for the short term, grant funding could work to put more deputies on the streets. And that's something that I'm skilled in. When I worked at Marysville Police Department, I secured over $1 million worth of non-match local grant funding for law enforcement. And I plan on putting that skill to use at Sutter County. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Just so the audience knows, a little over 40 years ago, I was actually in law enforcement. Unfortunately, I was too short to be a deputy sheriff. Half an inch. So I was a police officer. But I have to say, I very much admire all three of you gentlemen for going to this endeavor. Okay, do you agree with the argument proffered by Brad Westmoreland in his letters to the editor of the Appeal Democrat that California's sanctuary state law is not an immigration law and therefore does not violate the preemption doctrine? He argues that it is a public safety law and as such complies with the anti-commandeering doctrine. What is your view?
That's me.
Jeff.
Well, pretty much everybody knows I am not for SB 54. I believe immigration is not our job. It is the U.S. government's job. The Supreme Court through Arizona has affirmed that as well. Our job as sheriffs is not to enforce immigration. We respond to all people's calls, whether they're whatever race they are, whatever they're, regardless of their immigration status, we respond. What I don't like is tying our hands, making it more difficult to communicate with those people who are serious and violent that are in our communities. And what this sanctuary city law did was basically force the ICE people to go out in the communities, put themselves at risk as well as the community at risk, and make an arrest. Obviously, we need to have a safe place, and safe places in jail, to have that conversation with the ICE and take care of these serious and violent offenders. I truly believe that the supremacy clause will be upheld and California will be held accountable. I am a proponent of asking our Board of Supervisors to put together a resolution similar to Orange County and say they're against it. I've also, as of today, as I told you in past forums, that I've been working on putting release dates for tentative release of inmates on our website. And for quite some time we've been working. We finally got county council's approval. And as of today, about 4 o'clock, it is now live where you can go and see your loved ones in jail and what time they're going to get out tentatively, as well as the victims can also go there and obviously ICE can go there too. Thank you.
So the law that was passed that prohibits law enforcement from assisting ICE agents, I think is ridiculous. A lot of times, law enforcement needs to work together, whether it's at the federal level or the local level. And so I don't support that decision. I do, however, support that if the Yuba City Council and the Sutter County Board of Supervisors enact policy to circumvent that. I also, as Jeff said, I have said in other forums that I'm supportive of putting release dates on the county website so that people know, or ICE knows, when people that are incarcerated, what date they're going to be released. That not only applies just to ICE, but any victim of any crime. If you're a victim of a stalker or a victim of a sexual assault or a theft, you would be able to know when that suspect is going to get out. And I think that's all I have to say on that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I do appreciate the opportunity to respond. I've also been on record as saying that I do not support the sanctuary state law. We've all watched over the news in recent months the trial that occurred down in Sacramento. Danny Oliver was shot and killed, as was another one of our officers up in Placer County. Those are senseless acts and they don't need to happen. And tying the hands of law enforcement and making it so that we cannot go out and remove those people from our community before those types of tragic incidents is just an abomination. I've been on record as well saying that, I would recommend that the board opt out, develop some type of resolution, and, we as sheriffs, but more importantly as the sheriff, public safety is going to be my number one concern. And we have to find a way to communicate with our federal officers so that we can remove these people from our society. I will say that. Just another comment. I also agree that it's nice to have release dates online. There is actually already a notification system. It's called Vine. Victims can be notified when people are getting out of custody if they're being stalked or something like that. So all they have to do is sign up for that and they'll get a notification. It already exists. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, on to the third question. And we will have this with Dennis. Back to Dennis. So, it's a two-part. Are there adequate numbers of law enforcement for this area? And then I'm adding the second part. If you answer no to that, please provide some ideas that you may have about how you would seek remedying that situation.
So the answer is no. There are not adequate deputies patrolling our streets and rural areas of Sutter County. At any given time, there are 4 to 5 deputies patrolling the 608 square miles of Sutter County, not including the deputies that are assigned to Live Oak, but that is not enough manpower to cover the entire county. If a deputy is dispatched to a domestic violence call over in Sutter, those are high-risk calls, and that's usually a 2-deputy call, so that's going to tie up 2 of the 4 deputies during that one call. So we do need more deputies on the street. And part of my plan on that is there are deputy positions that are vacant. We need to recruit deputies that we are going to maintain, that we can retain. That using the cadet program and the reserve program is very successful. If we can home grow our own deputies, those deputies are much more successful when they go through the field training program, and they're more likely to stay at the department when they've grown up inside the department. So that's something that I've been doing at Yuba City Police Department with our cadet program, and I have 5 officers on the street that are former cadets for me at Yuba City. Much more effective than hiring deputies, sending them to the academy, and then bringing them back and putting them through a field training program. So growing our own deputies.
My answer is also no. I do not think there are a sufficient number of deputies. There used to be this old adage, and I don't even know truthfully where it came from, but it used to be that you needed 1 officer for every 1,000 residents that were in your community. If you do some quick math, you know that the 31 allocated positions at the Sheriff's Department are not sufficient enough. It probably needs to be double that. So then you have to start looking at, well, how do you resolve some of those issues? Well, the first thing you need to do is you've got to work with what you got initially. So you have to look at your patrol patterns, you have to look at your beat systems and see if you can realign some of that. Granted, the square footage of the county is what it is, but when you have 10 beats and you don't have 10 officers on a shift, it goes without saying that some people are being neglected. So you have to look at strategies that will maximize that. From there, you need to start working with the board to try to look at positions throughout the county, maybe through attrition as people retire. Some of those funds can be reallocated to the Sheriff's Department and start getting us the staffing that we need so that we can provide a better quality of public safety to our community. That's where the answer lies. We can beg, borrow, and steal all we want. We are not going to suddenly have somebody, pull a dump truck full of money up to Sutter County and unload it. It's not going to happen. We have to find ways to be resourceful with the what we have. Thank you.
The answer is no. We need more deputies. We have less deputies than we had in 1980. Our calls in the 80s were about 10,000. We're doing 39,000 calls today. Our deputies, what's helped them is the technology that we've upgraded and try to make it better. We want to get more deputies. Obviously, money is an issue, and we have, like I explained, unfunded liability as well as social mandates squeezing that general fund that everybody has to share. So we have to be a little bit more innovative. We have a volunteer program we started. We have a session plan with cadets that we bring up and keep. We've been very successful in recruiting correctional officers from other agencies nearby. I've just recruited, have 5 in the last year, and I've got 6 more on the list from outside agencies. I'm about ready to fill the patrol positions. Will probably be filled by July. One of the issues we have is pay. Deputies will go down to a nearby city and get $8 an hour raise. I sat down and talked to deputies. They said, we don't want to go, but I've got a family, I got a house to buy, and I need to support them. But if it doesn't work out, can I come back? And I've had 3 or 4 deputies come back that left and came back because they found out that Sutter County is more of a family. I have two positions asking for the board this year in their community service officers, non-sworn positions, trying to put them in place so they can take the cold calls, the calls such as burglaries and thefts that don't have a suspect on scene. They can also help with neighborhood watch programs, community programs, and all the other programs we have within the Sheriff's Office. And this hopefully will relieve some of these deputies to go out and do a little more proactive patrolling in the rural areas. So thank you.
Yes, sir.
What does community policing mean to you? What is your strategy for implementing a community policing program that will effectively bridge the gap between law enforcement and communities of color?
Yeah, so community policing to me is being engaged in the community. If any of you are familiar with Sir Robert Peel, back in 1829, he founded what he believed to be some principles in policing. And one of those says that the people are the police and the police are the people. The police are only members of our community that are paid to do the full-time job that really is incumbent upon all of us. It is all of our duty to maintain public safety and to work with one another. And so that is, in my opinion, at the essence of community policing. So my Barnes plan of action, which again is available out there, is based on a true community policing model. I have a copy of it here. As I mentioned earlier, I think the community response team is a big part of that. Also, I'm a proponent of monthly boots on the ground walks. We're all out walking now because we're campaigning, but what about the rest of the time? What are we doing to go out and to talk to our community members and ask them, what are the problems in your community? We need to do that. We need to be more engaged. Also, developing a citizens academy that will allow the community to come in and integrate into our department. And when they leave, they will become a resource to us. They will be our eyes and ears out on the street. I've also proposed a dine with the deputy, very similar to the coffee with a cop type scenario, where we will be out actively. We'll announce ahead of time where we're going to be, and we will be out and allow our community members to come and engage with us. Operation Recess, which is encouraging our officers to go out and spend time at our schools be proactive, and it might be as simple as playing a game of basketball or having lunch with them. But we need to break that barrier and let these kids in our communities know that we care about them and that we are positive role models for them. Community service. I believe that all the members of our sheriff's department should try to give some of their time back to our community. When you promote somebody, you can look at their personnel file and you can tell what they do during their 40 hours. Who are they outside of that? What do they do beyond that in the community? Those are the things that you need to look at, and I think those are the key elements of the true community policing model. Thank you.
The Sutter County Sheriff's Department has been doing the community policing for quite some time. We engage with the citizens in various ways. We have multiple programs. We have a program called Ready Fox 911 where we send dispatchers in schools to teach young kids what 911 is. We have an NRA Eddie Eagle program where we go into schools and teach those children about gun safety. We have bicycle patrol. We have a domestic violence unit. We also have a sexual assault group that goes out and does compliance checks. We have the Farm ID program. We have a farm prevention program. We also use the Arrow Squad to help with rural crime prevention. We have a volunteer program that helps us with neighborhood watches, helps us with vacation checks. We also are involved in our community in many ways. We're participating in the Peach Bowl Festival, the Sutter Abuse Day, Nicholas Labor Day Parade, and many more programs that we have. We are in there, our DSA is out there with the Shot for the Cop. And we also are starting our bicycle patrol, should be starting up any day now since the weather is warm, and we're working on that. And we also have teams that go out and do parole and probation searches, looking for those people to make sure they're staying in compliance and they're not out pillaging you people. Thank you.
I worked community policing in Marysville in 1996. My partner and I, Vance and Nevada, were two of the first community policing officers in the area for Marysville Police Department. And being involved in that startup program meant a lot to me, and I gained a lot of knowledge in working with the community. And what I learned is that community policing means addressing issues within the community that aren't necessarily police issues. They might be that your neighbor doesn't take their trash can in after trash day, and these folks don't know their neighbor, haven't gone out and contacted them and asked them to take their trash can in, so they call the police saying, isn't there a municipal code against that? And going out and getting these people to get to know their neighbors sometimes is as simple as it is. People in neighborhoods need to make an effort to get to know who lives around them. And true community policing, that's what you do. You go out, you get to know your neighbors. You get your neighbors to know their neighbors, and eventually everybody gets to know everybody, and they work together. So that community policing, I have a background in community policing, and it really means a lot to me. The Deputy Sheriff's Association, I'll give them a big thumbs up. Their Shop with a Cop program is a community policing type program, but the sheriff's office can do more. I'm involved in Live Oak 4-H. I'm a member of the Early Riser Kiwanis and a member as the Marysville Exchange Club. And those civic groups, the sheriff deputies need to be encouraged to work more with those type of groups, with children, with youth in our community.
Okay, so this will be over for Jeff to begin. What is your position on gun control, and specifically concealed weapon permit versus right to carry? Also on the limitations on number and type of guns, if you could just comment on that.
I'm very pro Second Amendment. Part of my job is to support and defend the Constitution of the United States, and that's my main job, as well as to make sure everybody's constitutional rights are protected. The Second Amendment, I believe anybody who wants to carry a concealed weapon should carry one. All they have to do is come in and apply, jump through the state hoops, pay the fees, and they'll get one. We only use self-protection. That's the only reason you need to have a concealed weapons permit. we allow people to have more than 3 weapons. They can have as many weapons as they want within reason. We also refuse to raise our fees. We won't raise our fees to the county fees to the people who want to conceal weapons. We don't believe in trying to prohibit them any further than what they have to pay fees. I can't stop the state from upgrading their fees, but that's their thing. We got behind on CCWs. Like I said before, we've gotten nearly 3 months behind our interviews. I had command staff, including myself, come in for about 2 weeks straight at nighttime, catching up all the CCWs. That's how important I feel the CCW weapons carrying is to me. I believe you don't know who's carrying a weapon, you're probably not going to commit a crime if you're not sure that guy's going to be carrying a weapon. And it takes a while to get the calls, and you have to protect yourself sometimes. That's what we all said. We only have 4 or 5 deputies, so we got to go to Robbins. Who's got to protect you? You've got to protect yourself. So you need a CCW, and I encourage people to have that. Thank you.
Everybody up here supports the Second Amendment. I think if you polled local law enforcement as a whole, that the majority of officers in the Yuba Sutter area would support people's Second Amendment rights and encourage law-abiding citizens that can check no to 11F on the APF form. That's the one that talks about mental health issues. Would encourage the people that have received the training and are skilled with a firearm to carry a concealed weapon. I encourage it. My wife puts together classes for ladies for concealed weapon permits to pass the class portion of it, so that they can go in and apply for concealed weapon permits through the sheriff's office. So my family is supportive of the Second Amendment. The type and limit, I know sometime the end of last year, November or so, the sheriff's office lifted the 3-gun limit on concealed weapon permits, and I think that was a very positive thing for anybody that wants to carry a concealed weapon permit. They're no longer limited to the 3 weapons. And as far as changes in the concealed weapon permit process, I would like to make it easier with going to an online service or program that people can renew their CCWs online, so they don't even have to come down to the sheriff's office.
So I'll ask, when is the last time that a CCW carrier wound up on the front page of the paper for doing something wrong? It doesn't happen, because we're all good people, we're all good citizens, and we're responsible gun owners. That's the bottom line. I carry concealed. I encourage other people to carry concealed. You have to do it within the law. We all understand that. Sutter County, actually, I will give them kudos. That is the one area that I think they actually have a pretty good policy. It's been explained by both candidates here, to my left and to my right. So I think there's a lot of positive in that. I would not be looking to make any changes in that area. I will say that there's potential legislation out there that could make it a 5-year option for renewal versus the 2 now. That's at the discretion of the sheriff. At least that's the way I believe it's written. And so if you're going to have potentially a 5-year period before you have to renew, training becomes essential. I want to know what you're doing in between your registration. And so I'm a big proponent of training. As a former SWAT team commander and as an active shooter instructor, I believe in accountability. You should be able to hit what you're shooting at. That's why one of my programs is going to be range days with the sheriff. Probably at least every quarter, I will send out invitations to our CCW carriers, and I will ask them to come to the range and shoot. We'll have a training instructor there, and we'll all be together. And it'll be a good opportunity for you to interact with me, ask questions. We'll have range day. We'll have some waters and sodas on hand. I just think that goes back to that whole community-based policing model, and it also makes us, good, responsible gun owners. Thank you.
Dennis, pardon me, Dennis. How are officers trained to apprehend a running suspect?
A running suspect?
Yeah. Sorry, guys. Yes, a running suspect.
By chasing them. So, yes, how are officers trained to apprehend a running suspect? Yes, it would be by chasing them. I'm going to expand on that, though. That is, a foot pursuit of an individual is probably in the top 3 of dangerous things that law enforcement can do. Los Angeles Police Department, for a period of time, actually prohibited their officers from engaging in foot pursuits unless they had a backup unit already with them, because of the number of officers that were injured. They also were having an issue with people lying in wait to attack the officers when they went into a foot pursuit. So I encourage officers, if it is a felon that is running and there's somebody running on foot, I encourage my officers to chase them down and try to apprehend them as safely as possible. I also encourage the use of non-lethal weapons to do so, to use the force that's reasonable necessary to effect the arrest, preferably a taser, and then moving up to a baton when necessary. As far as vehicle pursuits, I am not a big supporter of vehicle pursuits, especially in today's day and age. If we can identify the driver of that vehicle, I have many times myself canceled vehicle pursuits where they were misdemeanor violations. The occupant of the vehicle was not a danger to the public, and I would cancel those.
Thank you.
So foot pursuits, like any other aspect of our profession, it needs to be reasonable. The key term that we always use is reasonableness. So whether or not you give chase to somebody depends on what they've done. If you encounter somebody who's jaywalking and you tell them to stop and they take off, you're probably not going to chase after them. You can serve yourself better by putting out their description and calling it out to other officers and trying to make that contact some other way. Obviously, if it's a more heinous crime, like they just assaulted or perhaps killed somebody, and you see them and you give chase after them, risk versus reward. I mean, that's all part of the decision-making process. That all comes back to training. You have to train officers to make good decisions that protect your department from liability, protect them from getting injured, and at the end of the day, we all go home safe. That's the goal. If there's an opportunity to catch a bad guy, then you certainly want to do that. But again, risk has to outweigh reward, and you have to look at each case individually.
I have to agree with Brandon. It's a risk management decision. What are you chasing them for? What kind of crime have they committed? If they committed a little infraction, it may not be worth going after them. If you know who they are, if it's just an infraction, no use chasing them, go for a warrant. If it's a more heinous crime, as Brandon's described, then you're going to escalate and probably go after the person and do whatever you can to catch that person. And it depends on the circumstances. Even on a crime that may not be a safety to others, you've got to decide: is the risk? What's the risk? Is the risk not good to be running after him because something can happen? I'm in the wrong area. I'm running after somebody for something that may not be that big a deal. It all depends what the crime is, or if there's a crime. Hopefully there was a crime committed if you're chasing them.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Al. So I'm going to bring it back to the Second Amendment again. And pardon me, this be Brandon. So if the federal government passed stricter gun laws than California law, would the sheriff be required to enforce the federal law?
Well, so your ability to manage your county and your state, I think, if I'm not mistaken, it might be the 10th Amendment, but it supersedes federal law. There's debate whether or not, that was the whole Civil War argument, right? It was really about federal versus state rights. And so, I will tell you that if the federal government enacted more, if that's even correct, more strict laws in California, and I don't believe that's even possible, but I will tell you that, my job is going to be to protect our rights as citizens of this county, and that's where I'm going to stand.
My position is that I am not going to take weapons from a law-abiding citizen. I have no problem taking them away from somebody who is violent and serious offenders. I have a lot of good things to do in chasing bad guys, not knocking on your door, trying to find out, do you have this weapon, that weapon, because it's illegal, I need to get it. I will basically impose myself, and I would probably protest the law. And I just believe so firmly in our Second Amendment, and I don't make any apologies about it. That's just me. Too many people have died for this country and for this freedom that we have, and I don't want to lose any more freedom. We've lost enough. Thank you.
So there's no way that would ever happen. California has the strictest gun laws in the entire United States. But should that happen, I would not support going out and gathering up people's firearms. That if the federal government so chooses to do so, then I would stand up against that. But again, California, I don't see that as even a possible scenario with the gun laws that California has. So yeah, as the other two candidates said, I support taking care of law-abiding citizens. If we have a criminal or somebody on probation or parole that should not be in possession of a handgun anyway, then absolutely we're going to go out and make an effort to secure that firearm and get it off the streets.
To what degree and in what specific kinds of cases should the sheriff's office cooperate with ICE?
Was that back to me?
Jeff.
Me. Yeah. Well, again, we have SB 54. We also have what's called the Truth Act. And right now the law states they have to be violent or serious offenders, or they have to have a warrant for us to basically communicate with ICE. We need to communicate. We need to expand the violent and serious offenders. If you look at the law, there's a lot of violent and serious crimes that aren't even on that list, and we need to expand that list to include more people. Also, to get somebody on a fresh charge and you want to deal with ICE, you have to go to an arraignment and see a judge, and from that you go to a probable hearing cause, and after you get that cause, then you can go ahead with the judge's permission and contact ICE and deal with it that way as well. That's pretty much how we deal with it.
And whenever possible, as the sheriff, whatever means that are available to us, we will help ICE without breaking the law. I would never ask any of the deputies of the sheriff's office to commit a crime, anything that they're going to be held accountable for personally. But as Jeff said, the ways around it, anything that we can circumvent that, we will definitely put in place.
So again, public safety is the primary concern, and you have to take each situation on a case-by-case basis. As many of you know through local media and probably other sources, that I am the jail captain over Yuba County. We are an ICE detention facility. We house ICE inmates within our jail. It's a bed and breakfast, and that's essentially all it is. But we do have a mechanism, and we probably understand that mechanism better than most because we deal with it on a daily basis. You do have the ability to communicate with ICE. There is legislation out there right now, I believe, to broaden the base of what types of crimes you can report to ICE. I think that's a good thing. We need to continue to work at improving our lines of communication. Communication doesn't necessarily mean cooperating, it just means sharing information. What you decide to do with that information at that might be, where you're actually looking to cooperate on some level. We are not going out and raiding foreign labor camps. Sheriff's departments do not have the resources to do that. But at the same time, we have to be able to communicate with immigration so that we do not have another situation like the one that I discussed earlier down in Sacramento, where Danny Oliver was shot and killed. Those types of things cannot happen in our community, and to that end, we need to be able to communicate with ICE.
Okay, thank you. So this is, I think, maybe going to be our last question before we go to the closing 2 minutes. And it's a very broad question. It deals with kind of what you just talked about. So I'm kind of just going to let you guys take it where you'd like. But if you wouldn't mind, can you expand a little bit on how you would deal with the immigration issue? So, very open.
Kicking the dead horse here. And I've already covered it with the immigration issue. You know, the county needs to stand up, and the county needs to opt out, as do cities, and hopefully more counties across California start to follow suit. And if we can get enough counties behind opting out and standing up against the state, hopefully we can turn that over, and hopefully we can put the right district attorneys in place throughout the state of California that are pressing forward and push and prosecuting the laws that are violated in relationship to illegal immigration. And when you become the sheriff, you become part of a very small group of people, and that the Sheriff's Association in California is a fairly powerful and respected organization. That there are individuals in the state capitol that listen to that group of men and women. And as part of that group, as your sheriff, I will stand up and say we need to deal with the immigration issue, with the sanctuary law, and we need to repeal that.
So I'm going to go a little bit different direction just to start with. We are a pretty diverse community. It's actually one of the things that makes us very unique and very special. I know there's a lot of concern out there that when you go and you contact a victim of crime and you ask them certain information, that somehow they might reveal their immigration status and as a result be pulled from their families. That is not the case. Sheriff's departments and police departments, we do not do that. We don't go out with that in mind, and we don't go out with that intent. We are there truly to serve and to figure out what the problem is and to help resolve the problem in that moment. Now, the flip side to that is the thing that we've all been touching upon, which is those dangerous criminals that come to our community and they seek sanctuary. Those are the ones we need to be able to target. And those are the ones that we need to be able to be allowed to communicate with immigration on, so that we can find a mechanism to remove those people from our community. At the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, it is all about public safety. Nobody has the desire to remove a mother from a home and separate her from her children. That serves no purpose in terms of public safety. What does serve a purpose is removing these gang members that are coming into our country and seeking sanctuary in our communities and making our communities worse. So as sheriff, that's going to be my stance, and that's going to be my focus, is public safety. Thank you.
We're trying to resolve the problem now. As your sheriff, we've already started the process. We're putting the inmates booking out dates on our website. We're asking the Board of Supervisors to support a resolution to take a stand and say we don't want to be a sanctuary state. Working with our legislators, trying to convince them to get legislation in there to get this SB 54 overturned. Those are the three priorities I would have in trying to rectify our sanctuary city. Thank you.
Well, thank you all for your comments on the various questions, and I think we'll jump right into the last couple of minutes. It'll be 2 minutes on the closing for each, and since we ended with Dennis beginning that last question, I think we'll jump over to Brandon.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you for having us here tonight and giving us all the opportunity to speak before you. You have three very diverse candidates with very different visions of what is ahead for Sutter County. I presented my plan of action to you guys, and again, there are copies of it. If you're not familiar, you haven't had a chance to read through it, please do. If there's any questions about it, you can feel free to call me. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have in that regard. I do want to share that, I have the endorsements of my Reserve Association. I have the endorsements of the Deputy Sheriff's Association at my department, as well as the Management Association under Sheriff Ron Johnson and Sheriff Durker. I'm the only candidate sitting up here tonight that has the unanimous support of the men and women he works with. That should speak volumes. That should tell you everything you need to know about my leadership and my ethics and what type of a person I am. If I wasn't the right person, I wouldn't have their support. Now, I have the endorsements of many other, both active and retired law enforcement professionals in our community, as well as other active citizen members. The one thing that I've pointed out in the past is that I also have endorsements from 12 other sheriffs in California. There's been comments made as to, well, what's the significance of that? They're not local, they don't understand our community. Well, I'll tell you the significance is this. Mr. Hauck mentioned the State Sheriff's Association. When you're part of the State Sheriff's Association, you're appointed to committees and you work on problems that impact our state. You work to help draw resources to our community and you fight against bad laws that are being made. That is the significance. And those men and women, they've come out and endorsed me and said they want me to be the next sheriff of Sutter County because they want to work with me on these problems. You have a choice to make. I think that if you like the way things are going, then Jeff Pierce is probably your candidate and you should support him. If not, you need to look to another candidate, and I think I'm by far the most qualified candidate of the two others. So I appreciate your support June 5th, and please vote Brandon Barnes for Sutter County Sheriff. Thank you.
Well, thank you for coming tonight. In a couple of weeks, you're all going to be going to the polls and casting your ballot for a new sheriff. And it's very important to elect a sheriff that got the education, the knowledge, the toughness, person who has the integrity. I have 36 years invested with the sheriff's office. I made it my career, basically. I put my heart and soul in this sheriff's office. I've done everything I can to be accessible to the people who I serve, the people who I oversee. I've built up relationships with employees, county departments, and the citizens. I've farmed in this community for 30 years. Been an occupied in this community. I've been giving my heart out for everything. I know the sheriff's office inside out, from staffing to budgets. We have a lot of wonderful community projects that we're doing. I know both candidates said they're going to put this in and put that in, but ask yourself, if that's so important, putting these projects in, which we have most of them already, what have you done in your department to get those projects done in your department? I have a record. It's open. I'll sit down with you. I'll tell you what I've done in the sheriff's office. I'm not the old school guy. I'm the person who wants to better things in technology, getting our deputies the tools they need, everything. I've increased communications. I have a team, it's called a continuous improvement team, which is made up of various people in the department that don't have to go through the chain of command. And every so often they sit with the lieutenant and they can express their problems, what we need to change in our department. And I take those things and we make those changes. And I will always be an open door policy. Thank you.
Thank you all for coming here again tonight, taking time out of your busy lives and your evening. So obviously there's three of us up here that think that we each are the best candidate for Sutter County Sheriff. And what I will tell you about me is for 25 years in local law enforcement, I've been very engaged in the community and being involved with the youth of our community, with the Live Oak 4-H program, with the Marysville Exchange Club. I think that taking care of the youth in our community is very important, but I also think that taking care of the public is important, as well as taking care of the men and women that work under you. One of the sayings that I've used for a very long time is, if you take care of the men and women that work for you, the men and women are going to take care of business. And the business is taking care of you folks, the residents of Sutter County. And that is a culture that I am going to put into the Sutter County Sheriff's Office, that every man and woman that works there has that ingrained in them, that their job is taking care of you. but I'm also going to take care of them. I also have a lot of endorsements. I'm endorsed by Chris Sachs, by retired Lieutenant Bruce Hutchinson from Sutter County Sheriff's Office, Chief Richard Dosher, retired John Summers, retired Lieutenant Buddha Upel, retired Assistant Chief Jeff Webster, 4 out of 5 of the Yuba City Council members, and I could go on and on and on. I'm also endorsed by the Sutter County Sheriff's Posse, the Operating Engineers Local 3, and Local 228 Plumbers and Pipe Fitters. So I would ask that you do your research, look at my website, and hopefully when you go out and vote on June 5th, that you vote for Dennis Hauck for Sutter County Sheriff. Thank you.
Pardon me, just a quick thank you to all 3 of you who have helped make our community safe enough that 25 years ago, I decided to move here rather than back home to Monterey County. Too many people knew me and my children down there, and actually the things that I heard when I first moved here persuaded me that this was a good place to be. So thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Very well. Thank you so much.
And thank you 3, and I look forward to working with whichever one of you wins.
Thanks.
So we'll take a 10-minute break, and we'll come on back with the district attorney. 1.
ain't no way Debbie can call mom, so enough. Knock it off the hill.
Okay. So for the second half here, we have the district attorneys. We only were able to get Mr. Carlos to come this evening. So we're going to audible slightly and do it a little different, obviously, because we can't have a debate through those questions and answers. So what we're going to do is we're going to offer Mr. Carlos 4 minutes to introduce yourself, and then after that we're going to proceed with 4 questions, 2 from me and 2 from Bob. Nice and easy. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for coming. I really appreciate it. Obviously, everybody's really busy, and this is important. It's important to our county that people show up and get involved. I also want to thank both the Democrats and the Republicans for coming together. I think that's very important. I think unity is something that makes Sutter County important and special. And as Brandon Barnes was saying earlier, the diversity of Sutter County is very unique, I think, as far as not just in California, but throughout the country. And that's one of the things that makes it very special. And I want to appreciate everybody coming together, because the DA's office is nonpartisan. It's not Republican. It's not Democrat. It's something that should be for both parties. The most important thing is for the DA to have a good relationship with the people of the community and law enforcement. And that is something that I absolutely pledge to do if I'm elected DA. The intro I gave last night was 90 seconds, so I'm going to extend it to 4 minutes tonight. I have the experience and the dedication to make a positive change at the DA's office. That's why I'm running. This was never my intention 8 months ago to run for DA, but because of all the turmoil I've seen, it made me finally decide to run for DA, and I think the DA's office needs a change. It needs a new direction. I grew up in Marysville. I moved back in 1999 after I graduated from law school. Went to work for the Butte County DA's office for about 7 years. Went to work for the Sutter County DA's office for about 4 years. Started my own law practice about 7 years ago. While I was here, I was a founding member of the Sutter County Gang Task Force. The first year that I was the prosecutor there, we sent Sutter County gang members to prison for over 300 years. And I think that's important. And as a DA, I will be an active working DA. I will go to court. I will try cases. I will put people in prison. I will do the job of a DA. I will let the people of Sutter County see their DA in court, their DA prosecuting cases, their DA making people accountable for their actions. That is what I plan to do. So some of the things I'd like to change at the DA's office are the way cases are prosecuted. When I was in Butte County and many counties across the state, if not across the country, use vertical prosecution. It's the best way to prosecute people. It's the absolute best way to prosecute people. The same DA that starts the case has the case all the way through the finish. That way, that person is invested. That person knows everything about that case. That person knows every statement that every witness, every victim made during the course of that case. The system now is old, it goes back decades, and it needs to be changed. It was the same system when I was there, and I'll bet it's the same system that was there 30 years ago. You have one person that sees the case when it comes in, one person goes to court, one person might do the preliminary hearing, one person might do the trial. It needs to change. So that is one of the main things I would like to change. As far as other things, I'll try and get through them in the 4 questions that I'm going to be asked tonight. But what I promised to the citizens of Sutter County is to bring a change, a positive change to the DA's office, stop the turmoil, stop the lawsuits, stop the bad publicity in the newspaper.
Okay, I'll do the first question. So, I just got to adjust this for one candidate, but many people believe the district attorney should be the most experienced lawyer in the office. Would you please list 2 or 3 of the most important cases you have personally tried in court as a prosecutor?
Sure, and I absolutely agree with that. I think the person that is elected DA should be the most experienced person in that office, because that person is the ultimate decision maker. That person is the person that everybody else in the office comes to for advice. Not just attorneys, but the investigators. They're not attorneys, but they're trying to assist attorneys. So, and right now we don't have that. We have a DA that's never tried a murder case. We have a DA that's never done a jury trial since she became DA. And I've been asking, since I started this campaign, when was the last time she actually did a jury trial? And I've never heard an answer. My very first murder trial was in 2006. Kelly Fredrickson, he stabbed somebody, I can't remember, it was over 30 times. Then he went back the next day and lit the victim's body on fire to try and conceal his crime. That person right now is serving life without the possibility of parole. I would say, and I mentioned this last night, there was another gang murder case that I prosecuted here in Sutter County. That case was in Butte County. But when I was here in Sutter County, we had a 3 co-defendant gang murder case, drive-by shooting between 2 cars, right in broad daylight, right in downtown Yuba City. And because of security concerns, everybody involved had to have armed escorts to and from court everywhere they went during the course of the case. And that case resulted in, I think it was about 142 years in prison between the 3 defendants. One of them was just sitting in the car, so I think he got 20 years. But the other 2 people will probably never see the walls outside of a prison, or anything outside of the prison walls.
Employee morale, sorry about that. Employee morale and retention are critical to a successful department. What steps would you take to improve morale and retention in the district attorney's office?
Well, that's a good point. So, and that is key, because right now in Sutter County, a lot of the prosecutors are very young. I don't know about age-wise, but they're very inexperienced. They don't have a lot of experience. Just within the past 8 months or so, I would say our current DA assigned a life case to a very inexperienced prosecutor. And it went to a jury trial. She assigned him to do the jury trial, and it ended in a mistrial where he made a beginner's mistake and put out some information in front of the jury that you never should do, and the case ended in a mistrial. So he ended up pleading out to something a lot less than life in prison, but he was facing life in prison. So I think, and I've never said, for some reason there's this perception that I've been saying while I've been campaigning that everybody there at the DA's office is unhappy, and that's not the case. That's not true at all. I'm not saying that. I'm not trying to say that. And I think one of the main things for employee retention is just making sure people have the tools to do their job, make sure people are happy doing their job, make sure people have time to do their job, and make sure people have the support to do their job. Being a prosecutor is something special, and it's unusual in the court system. You're there to do what's right, and that is a good thing. You can do what's right if it means sending somebody to prison. You can do what's right if it means sending somebody to rehab. But you're there, a lot of people say you're there with the white cap on your head. You're there to do what's right, and that is a special thing, and that's why a lot of people become prosecutors. As in Yuba County, a lot of the people there are career prosecutors because they enjoy their job. So making the job enjoyable, making the job something that they want to come and do every day, I think will solve any type of turnover problems.
Great, thank you. Okay, so for the third question, by every measure, the war on drugs has been an abject failure. As Americans become more aware of this fact, and of the need to treat drug addiction and abuse as a health issue, not a criminal issue. What role do you see yourself playing as district attorney to ensure that incarceration is not used as a pseudo-treatment for the health epidemic that is drug abuse?
Okay, so a lot of criminal acts, well, a lot of things that were considered criminal acts, even felonies, even going to prison. When I first became a prosecutor back in 1999 or 2000, you could go to prison for having a little bit of meth. I mean, you could go to prison for 3 years if you had a little, like a $10, $20 worth of meth. It was theoretically possible for you to actually go to prison. Now it's a misdemeanor. Now you get drug treatment. Now there's diversion. Now there's Prop 36. The direction of California has changed a lot in the past 18 years since I first became a prosecutor in 2000. What is important to focus on are the drug dealers, like I was saying last night, the illegal marijuana grows, because those foster a lot of other crimes that endanger innocent people. Your home invasion robberies, your just general robberies from drug dealers, and especially illegal pot grows. They're I don't know, they're a focus, it seems like, for people doing home invasion. The people robbing them can get cash, they can get marijuana in large quantities, and they can go and sell it for a lot of other money. So it's a big problem. But the biggest concern as far as prosecuting people will definitely be the drug dealers and the illegal marijuana grows. Essentially, most personal possession of illegal substances now are pretty much all misdemeanors. So, and not only that, but there's laws that make it so the courts have to send them essentially to some type of treatment, either through the courts or live-in treatment.
Thank you. Do you believe it is the duty, do you believe it is the duty of the jury to judge the law as well as the facts? And are you supportive of the juror's right to determine if a law is unjust or has been misapplied, or that of a defendant's right have been violated in bringing him or her to trial?
I didn't really understand that last part, but so I think the focus of the question is jury nullification. That's what it sounds like to me. So when you pick a jury, the judge is going to instruct all the potential jurors that they are obligated to follow the law, even if you disagree with it. That is what the judge is going to tell you, and that is what the jurors will raise their right hand and swear to do when they become jurors, if they so make all the other tests that they have to go through. But and Sal Martinez was here last night, and he was charged by our current DA with assault with a firearm. He was the victim of a traffic accident. It was fairly severe. Could have been a felony hit and run because the other person was trying to drive off. Sal's car was not operating at that point. His wife was possibly hurt. So he pulled his firearm off duty. He was an alcohol, beverage, and control officer. Pulled his firearm off duty, told the person to stop. I called the police. And for that, our DA prosecuted him for a felony, which actually could have sent him to prison for up to 4 years. And he lost his job, and he lost his life for essentially 18 months. So I happen to know the person that defended him, and I happen to know that the judge made a number of rulings regarding jury instructions that would go to the jury that basically should have nullified what the defense argument was to the jury in legal terms. So that basically would have given Sal Martinez a much better chance of being acquitted if the judge had read these jury instructions. The judge declined to read those jury instructions. So, and even still, without those jury instructions, the jury took about an hour and a half to acquit Sal Martinez of the assault with a firearm. And I think that was the right thing to do. And I think the jury does have common sense when it comes to stuff like that.
Well, that concludes the 4 questions I mentioned earlier. I have this interest in asking one more, but I'm getting the nod. I first want to apologize to the crowd because I said 4 and I'm looking at 5. But I thought, since we talked about it a couple of times with the sheriff candidates, that maybe you could weigh in a little bit on the Second Amendment and your prosecutorial discretion or not in going after, say, a Second Amendment violation. I don't know.
Well, I don't know what a Second Amendment violation is.
Well, so for example, the state of California has let's say, fairly onerous or restrictive rules and laws pertaining to what firearms you can or can't have. 30-round magazines, etc., are banned. So if that were to come before you, the sheriff candidates indicated that they wouldn't go after those kinds of violations. But you have your own investigators, and I suppose you could. So I was just kind of curious what your take was on that sort of situation.
Okay, sure. I'm all in favor of the Second Amendment as long as people have the legal right to have a gun, because there's a lot of people that don't have that right. And if the sheriff or his deputies or the police or whoever is not going to actively go out and try and enforce, say, a 30-round magazine violation, then it makes it easy for me because obviously we never see it. But and this is maybe one of the things that I disagree with a little bit as far as the current DA goes. I believe there's funding for 7 investigators. I think they have 6 right now, and an investigative assistant. And all I heard last night was about how proactive investigations the DA investigators take part in. Well, the DA investigator job really should be to assist, back up, and make the cases that are there better or easier to present in court. Or if the prosecutor has a question about what somebody said, ask the DA investigator to go out and try and find out a little bit more about what happened. And I don't have any problems with DA investigators doing proactive work, but I don't think it should be the main focus at all. Like I said last night, and what all 3 sheriff candidates have said, and what everybody, I think, says, is that the sheriff's department needs more patrol deputies, especially in the rural areas. Why do we have 7 investigators and they only have 3 or 4 deputies on duty for the entire Sutter County area? So, as far as there's lots of little things that technically are crimes, but in the big picture, do they really matter? Like I had just an aside very quickly, I have a client that was arrested for felony child abuse, and this will be really quick. Felony child abuse, and this is outside of Sutter County. I've been talking to, he had to actually bail out of jail for a felony, $50,000 bail, for slapping his child who wouldn't do his math work. He's an older Sikh individual, and it wasn't outside the realm of child rearing for the way he was raised to do something like that. So I've been talking to this deputy DA in the county where this happened over the course of the past couple of months, and I've been trying to convince him that he understands now that he can't do this, but this is how he was raised. So finally the deputy DA has come around. At first he was saying, okay, well, I kind of see your point. I'll file a misdemeanor. I don't think this is something that should send this person to prison, so I'll file a misdemeanor and we'll see where we can go from there. Well, this morning he calls me up and says that I'm going to decline this case in the interest of justice because he's learned his lesson. He's done everything he was supposed to do with child protective services. He now understands that this is not the way you should teach your children to do their math homework. And I don't think this is an appropriate case to be taking up space in our criminal justice system. So prosecutors have discretion. They should use that discretion. Some cases need to go to court, and even though it might be a technical violation, some cases don't need to go to court.
Well, I think we'd offer you a couple of minutes to close, and I think that'll do it. Yeah.
Okay. As I said, I think I have the experience that we really desperately need at the DA's office. As I also said, the current DA has never tried a murder case. It is the one crime that is heinous and serious and actually does happen in our community. And it is important for someone, as one of the questions earlier said, the DA should be the most experienced person in the office because that is the last person to make the decision. I have 40 jury trials, I have numerous murder trials, I have numerous gang murder trials. I have sent numerous people to prison for the rest of their life. And I would just ask you, as I did last night, I don't know if anybody was here last night, if one of your friends, relatives, loved ones was murdered and the person was caught and was being prosecuted, who would you want in court prosecuting that person who murdered your loved one? Would you want my opponent, who's never even done a murder trial, who's never done a trial since she became DA, and won't actually tell anybody when was the last time she actually did a jury trial? Or would you want me? I just finished my last jury trial a number of weeks ago. I've done a number of jury trials, both as a defense attorney and as a prosecutor. So when you go to the polls on June 5th, I just ask you to keep that in the back of your mind. Who would you want in that position at that time? Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Carlos. Sharon or?
Thank you all for coming. I know the Republican Council Committee has a meeting following us.
Yes, we do.
So the ones of us who are leaving